Imagine a hurricane framed in pads and cleats, not the kind that uproots trees, but the kind that ruins quarterbacks' nights and turns offensive game plans into scavenger hunts. That's the Broncos right now, violent, all over the field, and merciless. Through 10 games, they've piled up 46 sacks, and if this frenzy keeps up, they'd finish the season with a jaw-dropping 78, a number that would blow past the long-standing record of 72 set by the 1984 Bears. NBC Sports more. You don't get to those kinds of totals by accident. This is a mashup of coaching, scheme, and personnel all clicking at the same time. Players who, a few months ago, were quietly talented suddenly look like the only thing standing between quarterbacks and clean pockets. Nik Bonitto, Jonathon Cooper, Zach Allen, those names are no longer underlines in a scouting report. They're a bingo card opponents dread seeing lit up. The rush is coming from everywhere. Stunts, late twists, guards doubling one way while another defender disappears into the backfield. It's chaos, and it's orchestrated. Yahoo Thethao, let's be human about this for a second. Sacks are glorious and ugly at the same time. They're glory for the team that gets them. The roar, the momentum swing, the we did something that ripples through a stadium. But they're ugliness for quarterbacks who feel their season collapsing in half-second increments. A sack isn't just a lost yard. It's a micro-trauma. It dribbles doubt into the QB's decision-making. Hold the ball, throw sooner, run. The Broncos aren't just getting sacks, they're seeding hesitation across opposing offenses. That hesitation multiplies into incompletions, turnovers, and games that tilt the Broncos' way even when their offense refuses to cooperate. And it's not only about raw numbers, it's about the rhythm breaker. When a defense consistently pressures a passer, play calls change. Opposing coordinators start offering up checkdowns, sooner than usual protections, and quicker throws that strip an offense of its identity. Teams that wanted to play long developing passing concepts against Denver now have to rewire for survival. That's strategic value you can't see on a stat sheet. You force a whole offense to abandon what it does best. You don't just sack a passer, you shape the next play before it happens. There's also a market ripple here. When a team produces pressure like this, scouts and GMs start updating their spreadsheets. Who's free agent? Who's beatable in scheme? How do we replicate this? Success breeds imitation, but it also breeds attention. Nik Bonitto's phone buzzes more. Opposing left tackles study his film twice. Contracts get reimagined. The Broncos didn't just build a pass rush, they created narrative leverage. We can win games without points because our defense will do the dirty work. That's a dangerous pitch for the rest of the league. But let's not pretend it's all roses. There's a fragile balance between an elite pass rush and the rest of the team being functional. The Broncos' offense has looked, at times, like a parking lot after a storm. Cars scattered, no rhythm, people wondering how they got here. Defensive dominance can paper over offensive problems for a while, but football seasons are long and the ledger is patient. If Denver's offense can't support drives, the defense will be on the field more. Fatigue will creep in, and suddenly the sack engine will sputter under volume. The record chase is intoxicating, but maintenance matters. Rotations need depth, injuries need to be managed, and the scheme needs subtle evolution or opponents will adapt. WTOP News, I want to pull a microscope out for a second and look at the personalities who make this beautiful mess possible. Bonitto brings twitch and timing. He's a guy who detonates the second a tackle blinks. Cooper is the grinder who wins with technique and angles. He's not always the highlight, but he's the consistent blade. Zach Allen is the disruptor, the veteran who anchors gaps and eats space so others can sprint through the seams. It's the classic combination: explosive youth, dependable craft, and the veteran who lends polish. When those three hit in the same game, opposing quarterbacks don't just get hit, their rhythm gets stolen. Yahoo Thethao. And because we live in the era of instant legends, yes, everyone around the league notices. You see protection schemes get conservative, extra tight ends, chip blocks, max protect calls. You see play callers shorten routes and take the deep game off the table. That's victory already. You're not just winning plays, you're compressing an opponent's identity. It's like removing color from a film until only the scenes that serve you remain. But here's the sentimental thread that keeps me leaning in. This is the kind of unit people remember. When a team's defense reaches mythic levels, when sacks arrive like a drumbeat, you get those locker room memories, the kind that bond players beyond a season. Veterans point at the stat line and nod. Rookies learn that football can be both poetry and armor. Coaches smile in a way that drafts do not buy. Those shared moments, late game drives ended by a sack, a strip that changes a season, they're the stuff that builds culture. Records are just smoke. Culture is the furnace that makes more smoke. There will be skeptics, of course. Numbers can be flattered by opponents' injuries, by weather, by a schedule that favors rushable quarterbacks. There are variables: a banged-up offensive line, a game where weather gives the pass rush an assist, or a week where a rookie QB is forced into uncomfortable throws. Still, deniable variables don't erode the reality that this Broncos front is special. Rarely do you see such a wide distribution of sack sources. It's not a one-man show. That distribution makes the achievement harder to counter because you can't neutralize a single player and quiet the unit. You have to solve for many moving parts at once. As an audience, we get to watch two dramas at once: the defensive audition for history and the underlying team narrative that asks whether a record chase can coexist with building a sustainable winning formula. Will this defense carry Denver into the playoffs if the offense remains temperamental? Can the coaching staff keep the rush fresh while the season wears on? These are the late act questions that will decide whether this pass rush becomes legendary or merely historic. Picture the final game of the season, the stadium electric, the announcer reading out a mounting total, the crowd counting each sack like a rung on a ladder. If the Broncos get there, if they truly chase down and topple a record that's stood since 1984, what they'll have done is more than accrue numbers. They'll have rewritten expectations. That pressure can be designed, distributed, and it can win you games in a way statistics finally respect. So enjoy it while it's loud. Enjoy the hits, the turnovers, and the late game eruptions that make opponents look small. But keep an eye on the whole machine. Rotate the players, manage the snaps, and keep the offense alive enough that the defense can rest. Because records are fragile when you build them on muscle, and greatness is built when muscle and craft hold hands across 4 quarters. Tonight, the Broncos aren't just hunting quarterbacks, they're hunting a piece of history. And for anyone who loves the violent, messy poetry of pass rush, that's about as good a season storyline as you can ask for. You want loud? The Broncos are making the league shush itself. After ransacking Geno Smith for 6 sacks on Thursday night, Denver's defense sits at 46 sacks through 10 games, a pace that projects out to about 78 sacks over 17 games. That's not a stat anymore. It's a threat. If this keeps up, the Broncos won't just win games, they'll rewrite the record book. NBC Sports, let's put the Frankenstein in perspective. The single-season team record is 72 sacks, a mark set by the 1984 Chicago Bears, the archetypal pass rush dynasty. The Broncos aren't flirting with that number. They're sprinting toward it. That historical comparison makes what we're seeing feel less like a hot streak and more like a tectonic shift in how opposing offenses will have to plan for Denver the rest of the year. ProFootballReference.com, how are they doing it? Start with the cast. Denver has legitimate sack producers up and down the roster: edge speed, interior push, and a rotation that keeps fresh legs coming at quarterbacks on every down. Nik Bonitto is one of the league's headline producers after breaking out last year, and the club's investments in their front, both in coaching emphasis and in contracts, are paying off in real time. When 3 different players can legitimately threaten a sack on any given snap, offenses stop being comfortable, and comfort is what the best quarterbacks live off. DenverBroncos.com. But this isn't just named stars. The Broncos have engineered a culture of pressure, disciplined stunt packages, programmed blitz looks, and an interior that collapses pockets so edge rushers can finish. Scheme-wise, they're asking the offense to solve more than one problem every play, which means pass protections have to be perfect to survive. When they're not, the result is chaos and, more often than not, a quarterback on the ground. That kind of systemic pressure is what turns talent into a record chase. Gazette.com. There's a tempo advantage, too. The Broncos rotate smartly. Players get heavy reps in short bursts and then rest, so the heat stays consistent late